The original Roscommon Castle was built in 1269 by Robert D. Ufford on the lands he had taken from the Augustinian monastery. The reason for building the castle was to protect the Anglo-Normans' interest in that area. The castle was taken over and partly destroyed by Connaught King O'Conor in 1272, and 8 years later the Anglo-Normans took it back and fully restored the castle. By 1340, the O'Conors regained possession of it and held it for 2 centuries until 1569. In 1569, Sir Henry Sidney, Lord Deputy of Ireland for Queen Elizabeth I, seized the castle and a few years later granted it to the new ruler of Connaught, Governor Sir Nicholas Malaby. Malaby remodeled the castle, putting in towers, walls, and many windows for natural light. The Confederate Catholics captured the castle in 1645. It remained in Irish hands until 1652 when Cromwell came to destroy the majority of it. Finally, in 1690, during the Williamite Wars, it was burned down and fell into decay. Carramore is an early site that was built around the time hunter-gatherers were turning into Neolithic farmers. This cemetery predates the Egyptian pyramids and dates back between 4500 to 3500 BC. It was a place for rituals and a meeting ground for the Neolithic people. There are 27 monuments that remain today in different types of conditions. Earlier researchers say there may have been up to 100 monuments at Carramore. Many of the sites have been damaged in the early years of the 19th century by amateur archaeologists, farmers, and demolished to open gravel pits and build walls. Tomb 51, also known as Listowel, is the largest tomb at Carramore. This is the only tomb that is covered by a cairn. It dates back to 3500 BC and is the only tomb with rock art. This tomb is also on the highest point of the Carramore complex, showing that there is some meaning of importance with the burials. Queen Maeve's tomb is 55 meters in diameter by 10 meters high. It is said that the tomb was built for Iron Age Queen Maeve, whose father, the High King of Ireland, gave her Connaught as a gift. In Celtic mythology, Queen Maeve was known as the warrior Queen of Connaught. Unfortunately, the queen had a bad reputation of being unkind to others. One of her biggest mistakes was murdering her own sister with the intent to steal her sister's husband. She also had many husbands, which she got rid of by murder. She is famous for her argument with her husband King Ailill over whose wealth was greater, but their wealth was almost entirely equal. However, she did lack one thing. Ailill owned a bull, the strength of which Maeve's could not match. Maeve soon found out that an even more impressive bull was in Ulster, and she was not allowed to borrow it. As a result, she gathered an army and launched an invasion on Ulster. She did not win the battle, but she was successful in taking the bull. She brought it home to Connaught, where it fought and killed Ailill's bull, and then it found its way back home to Ulster. Queen Maeve won this battle against her husband. However, Maeve's sins that she committed in the past, mostly the killing of her sister, came back to haunt her. Her dead sister's son came back for revenge on Maeve, and is said to have killed her with a slingshot filled with hard cheese. Because she had such a bad reputation, she was buried in County Sligo, far from the royal capital of Connaught in Roscommon. Many believe that this was an attempt to keep her spirit safe distance from the people she once ruled. Within the tomb, Maeve is believed to stand upright in full royal regalia. She has been buried there since Neolithic times. The Rock of Cashel, also known as St. Patrick's Rock, is a collection of buildings including a round tower, chapel, cathedral, and castle which are linked together as one building. In the 4th century, the Rock of Cashel was chosen as a base by a clan from Wales, who went on to conquer much of Munster and become kings of the region. In the 10th century, the clan from Wales lost possession of the rock to the O'Brien tribe under Brian Brew's leadership. In 1101, O'Brien, king of Munster, gave the Rock of Cashel to the church. Shortly after, the church put up a round tower which still stands today. In 1111, Cashel became a seat of an archbishop. The paintings in the chapel, which are the oldest Romanesque wall paintings in Ireland were covered with whitewash at the Reformation and remained hidden until the 1980s. The cathedral was used for worship until the mid-17th century. There is a 19th century high cross in the grave site that was hit by lightning. The remains are still below the cross today. Kilmainham Jail, built in 1796, was where many famous figures of Irish history were held and died. Originally, the jail was a place for those who fought against the English. The most famous men that died were the 14 leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising. These deaths took place in May 1916 in the early hours of the morning in the Stonebreakers Yard. The executions were a disaster for the British because it made even those who had opposed the rising begin to support the rebels. This led to the formation of the Irish Free State in 1921. During the Civil War, executions of anti-treaty Republican prisoners took place in Kilmainham. This time, it was not the English that were making executions. Instead, the orders of the Civil War opponents, the government of the Irish Free State. During the Civil War, there were more prisoners executed in Kilmainham by their own Irishmen that they used to stand beside than the 120 years before it. The last prisoner held in Kilmainham was anti-treaty IRA leader Eamon de la Vera. After de la Vera was let out, the jail closed and the people of Ireland abandoned it. It wasn't until the 1960s that the state began to preserve the jail and open it again to the public. Between 1200 and 1212, King John's Castle was planned and built. In the following centuries, it was repaired and remodeled many times. In 1642, Limerick and the castle took a hit from the Great Siege. The Confederate used mines during the Great Siege, which weakened the front wall of the castle. The castle saw much destruction during the sieges that took place in Limerick. Unfortunately, King John never visited the castle that was built for him. The original Powerscourt was a 13th century castle for La Poer, so he could easily access the three rivers nearby. Powerscourt was used from anything from living in, treating guests such as King George, or having conferences about the Bible. The house was used to assert power and show wealth. In 1730, Richard Castle remodeled the medieval castle into the Powerscourt House. 11 years later, it was completed with 68 rooms. Not only was the house extremely nice, it was filled with expensive pieces of artwork. The house belonged to Richard Wingfield and his wife Lady Amelia. They used the house to have guests in during Parliament season. Powerscourt also has a grave site for the pets and a Japanese garden. Powerscourt Estate also owns the tallest waterfall in Ireland. Christ Church is one of the only two cathedrals in Dublin that is Protestant. The cathedral is founded by Silkbeard in 1038. In 1172, the cathedral was remodeled with stone and was not completed until sometime in the 13th century. This is also the tomb of Strongbow, leader of the Normans. The Guinness Brewery started in 1759 when Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year contract for €45 a year to rent out St. James Gate. The Guinness Brewery since then has bought the property and owns most of the buildings surrounding the area for offices and homes for the workers. It also produces its own energy through a power plant. In 2008, Guinness was selling 10 million glasses of the black stuff every day in over 150 countries. The Aran Islands are a group of 3 islands located at the mouth of Galway Bay. The island I visited was Inishmore, which 900 people live on and is 3 miles wide at its widest point. There is 1 school with 1 doctor and a nurse. People on this island make money from fishing, farming, and the vast amount of tourists that visit. Their first language is Gaelic and second is English. Because the island is made up of mostly limestone, the first people on the island mixed layers of sand and seaweed on top of the rocks to create rich soil. They then were able to grow potatoes and other vegetables. Clonmacnoise was founded in 546 by St. Kieran. Serval helped St. Kieran build the first church at Clonmacnoise. Serval was the first man to be crowned High King of Ireland while practicing Christian. St. Kieran died less than 1 year after Serval was crowned High King from the yellow fever. St. Kieran was buried under the original wooden church that is now a stone church. Between the 8th and 12th century, Clonmacnoise was a village of about 2,000 people. During this time, it took many invasions from the Anglo-Normans and Vikings. As Athlone became a bigger town for trading, Clonmacnoise was deserted. Athlone Castle was built during Anglo-Norman times for King John of England. The castle was built to defend the crossing point of the River Shannon and so the Anglo-Normans could advance into Connaught. Ever since it was built, it has been occupied by the Anglo-Norman families, as well as a home for the president of Connaught and a place for the Jacobites during the sieges of Athlone. In 1922, the Free State troops overtook the castle and flew the Irish flag. In 1967, the castle was made a museum for the city of Athlone. The Cathedral of St. Nicholas was built August 15th in 1965 and is the youngest of Europe's great stone cathedrals. Knowth is the largest of all passage graves at the Brú na Bóinne complex. This site has 1 large mound known as Site 1 and 17 smaller satellite tombs. The people of this time were an organized society of intelligent people who had much experience and knowledge in terms of technology and engineering. These people were also very knowledgeable about astronomy and had strong spiritual and religious beliefs. During the Bronze Age, Knowth was left alone and had almost no trace of telling if it was occupied or not. During the Iron Age, the Celts occupied Knowth. During the 8th to 12th centuries, Knowth became the capital of the kingdom of North Brega and was ruled by the branch of the O'Neill dynasty. During the Iron Age, the Normans built a fort on top of Knowth. During the 9th and 10th centuries, Knowth was used as a hideout during the Viking raids. Knowth was then used for farming until the state purchased it in 1939. Trim Castle is the largest Anglo-Norman castle in Ireland. It was constructed over a 30-year period by Hugh de Lacy and his son. The construction of the castle began in 1176 on the site of an earlier wooden fortress. This massive castle was protected by a ditch, curtain wall, and moat. Trim Castle was built partly to demonstrate de Lacy's power and intimidate the Irish people. Geneville took on the castle after and added wooden towers, improved the fosse, the drawbridge, the north tower, and built the Great Hall. The castle was then passed on to the Mortimer family until the last of them died in 1425. The castle was used for the Irish Parliament in the 16th century and also had a mint that ran in the castle. Cromwell occupied this castle in 1649 and In 1592, a small group of Dublin citizens obtained a charter from Queen Elizabeth that first made Trinity College. In 1689, all of the students were expelled when the college was turned into a barrack for the soldiers of James II. During the 18th century, many Protestants went to Trinity, so Parliament made many generous donations. Trinity was also one of the first colleges to let women attend their classes. All of the classes taught at Trinity is done on campus. Now today, Trinity sees more students than ever before expected from 70 different countries. They have one of the biggest libraries in the world because Trinity gets. In 1780, John Jameson, a Scottish man, established the Bow Street Distillery, founded in Dublin on the north side of the Liffey. His family motto and guiding philosophy was Sin Mitu, meaning without fear, which can be found on every bottle of Jameson Irish whiskey. Today, Jameson is the world's third largest single distillery whiskey. The word Burren comes from an Irish word that means rocky place. The Burren consists of 300 square kilometers of limestone. In 1651, a Cromwellian army officer reported back saying, "It is a country where there is not enough water to drown a man, wood enough to hang one, nor earth enough to bury them." Halnabrone Dolmen is a tomb in the Burren that dates back to the Neolithic period around 3800 and 3600 BC. This tomb is also called a portal tomb, and it is one of Ireland's most photographed archaeologist sites. The tomb was most likely a place for ceremonies and rituals. Below the tomb, archaeologists found 22 people, 16 adults and 6 children. The Cliffs of Moher are one of the most popular tourist destinations in Ireland and topped the list of attractions in 2006 by drawing almost 1 million visitors. The cliffs get their name from an old fort called Moher that once stood nearby. The cliffs stand anywhere from 390 feet to 702 feet tall. Humans have also used them to our advantage as a place of lookout, quarrying, fishing, collecting eggs and feathers. They have also been a part of many myths and legend.